My name is Kate, this is my kitchen, and this is Cook Along with Kate. For this edition of Cook Along with Kate, there are two awesome surprises. One, I'm doing a recipe that I've never cooked before, and two, the person who's going to be helping me with that recipe is my very own mom, Nancy McGovern. Now, my mom is going to be joining me via Zoom shortly, and obviously we were hoping that we would be able to do this together in her kitchen. However, with COVID-19 and wanting to keep everybody safe, we have decided to let the interwebs connect us virtually in order to do the recipe. So I'm gonna get my mom on the phone and we will get right into this recipe shortly. Okay, so I have my mom on the Zoom call with me. We're doing some recording with the Zoom as well, so you'll be able to see what's going on in her kitchen. And I just wanted to go over what we're making, why we're making it, why is it so Christmassy, and just a couple questions on the mise en place because I have not gotten my ingredients together yet. I've wanted to check with my mom on what she does, and she is doing some things differently. So we'll go through all of that so that you can also understand how you might want to adjust the recipe at home. So let's get started. Hey Mom, how's it going?
Hey everybody.
So tell us about what we're making today.
Today we're going to make tourtiere.
Excellent. And what is a tourtiere for people who don't know?
A tourtiere is a French-Canadian meat pie. So
French.
It's not all the same. Everyone has their little changes that they do to it. It's not the Lac Saint-Jean variety, which is mostly, chunky bits of meat and stuff. This is made with ground meats and savory seasonings.
Excellent. So we're making tourtiere at Christmas. It is definitely something that I remember having basically every Christmas. So it's become a tradition for us to have it. But when did you start first having tourtiere at Christmas?
My mom used to make it every Christmas, and she would make it especially for the Réveillon, which was the time when we would get ready to go to midnight mass. And so when we came back from midnight mass, not only did we have this wonderful feast, including tourtiere, but Santa would have visited, and the whole place would be very festive. The tree would be lit, and the stockings would be filled, and we would all sit down and enjoy tourtiere and other delicious things, and open most of our presents, and then go to bed. Who knew?
That's excellent. So this is actually Granny Tremblay's tourtiere recipe. It's your mom's recipe, correct?
Well, in as much as we remember, yes. So it would have been Granny Tremblay, who was born Berthe Renaud, and she was born on les Îles de la Madeleine just before the turn of the last century. So she would have grown up on the islands that in the wintertime would have been very cut off from the mainland. So I don't really know what they made their tourtières with way back when. They would have had certainly some provisions, and they had chickens, and they had probably pigs, whatever they had, some livestock on the island. But I also heard a rumor that they would have set up nets and caught birds. So they would have caught perhaps, any number of different birds that flew by the island, and they would prepare them and make them into a sort of savory tourtiere pie as well.
Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing that story with everybody and with me. Of course, I know some of this history, but it's great to get a refresher. So let's go over, you were talking about how they used basically anything that they could find. Obviously today we are much more fortunate that we can go out and get exactly what we want to make this amazing recipe. So we just had a great conversation. I was going over what I have in my kitchen to make this. You were going over some of the substitutions and additions and things that you've done over the years to really make this recipe your own. I'm going off of the card that is probably the last best transcription of the recipe that we have from Granny and Grandmommy, my grandmother. So let's go over the mise en place, and then we're gonna do a fast forward of me chopping all of this stuff, and then we'll get back together and do the method for the filling. Cool. All right. So in the original recipe, what I'm going to be using today is I have 4 pounds of ground pork, And Mom, you're doing something a little bit different.
I am. And coincidentally, when I went to the store yesterday, they had only 4 packages of ground pork. And so I had to make do with ground chicken, which I've done in the past. And I'm making 6 large tourtiere. So I'm going to need about 4 kilos of ground meat. So I think that'll work just fine. And also I had big red onions.
Yes.
I'm going to use 4 of those, and I'm going to use the rest little shallots. And again, I'm making twice the recipe that you are making, Kate. I'm making 6 big tourtiere.
Yes, and I'm going to be making 6 small tourtiere. So the onions I have that I'm using are, I'm going to use 5 of these cooking onions that are smallish size, but I think that'll be plenty of onions. So for garlic, we're also using about 6 to 8 cloves. So yeah, I've got 1 full bulb of garlic, and then I've got some extra cloves that I'll be using. That should be good. We also are going to be using some potatoes. So we need to chop these guys and parboil them for about 5 to 10 minutes until they're tender with a fork. So I'm using just these, I guess, Canadian yellow fleshed potatoes. That's what I'm using.
Yeah. And I had baking potatoes only, so I'm using baking potatoes. And I only have these little Canadian Heritage garlic, so I'm going to use a bunch of those, probably 3.
All right.
Tourtières.
Excellent. Well, we're not scared of garlic in the McGovern Roberts household. Okay, awesome. So what else? Okay, so celery. So we're going to do 2 cups of finely chopped celery. That's right. And then in terms of our seasoning, we're going to be using salt, cinnamon, some ground cloves, which I was so lucky that I actually found ground cloves, because I feel like most people, especially at Christmas, only get the full cloves to stick in citrus fruits and hams and stuff. So I was very happy that I actually found ground cloves. And also some savory, which I don't even remember the last time I used this, but luckily I had it in my kitchen already. So. Wow, okay, so I've put together my mise en place. I hope you enjoyed the time lapse. It took about, the better part of 40 minutes to get all of this together. So I'm gonna go over the recipe, the way that it is traditionally. You heard from my mom, she did a little bit of additions and substitutions from her own experience. So here is everything that you need to make the Réveillon tourtiere. So we have our 4 pounds of ground pork. We're also going to need some olive oil or vegetable oil for frying that off, which I'm going to do in a second. Then I also have 3 cups of beef stock. I have finely diced 4 to 5 onions, and I wish that I had done my makeup after doing this, because I was crying after the first onion and it was just a total mess. So I don't know if you caught that on the time lapse, but I came back with like sunglasses, I had tissues, it was a whole thing. So my mom is also still here. She's working on hers. Just a second, I'll mute her. There we go. Okay, so I'm just gonna mute her for a second. So yeah, I've got my onions, I've got my 6 to 8 cloves of garlic, which has been finely diced. I actually put it through a garlic press. I have 4 small potatoes, which I have diced finely and parboiled for 5 to 10 minutes. 2 cups of finely chopped celery. And then my spice mix, I have 1.5 teaspoons each of salt, fresh ground pepper, cinnamon, ground cloves, and ground savory. And then I also have 2 cups of breadcrumbs that's going to be going in closer to the end, and 2 cups of chopped parsley. Now, the other thing that isn't out here that I'm actually going to be doing tonight is I'm going to be making my own pastry. So that will be another segment that I'm going to be doing later on. My mom already has some pastry put together. I did not have time to put it together for this, but that's fine, because after we get the mix all together, we are going to let it cool overnight. I'm going to have my pastry done tonight, and then we're going to assemble all of the tourtières. So we have everything we need, and the first thing we're going to get started with, that my mom has already gotten started with, is frying off all of the ground pork. So I'm gonna move my camera around so you can see my stove, and the action is gonna be happening over there. So get ready for Tourtiere Part 2, the method. Okay, welcome to the stovetop edition of making the tourtiere. So I have another frying pan out that I'm going to be using to brown off all 4 pounds of my ground pork. As it gets browned off, I'm going to remove a little bit of the fat, not all of the fat. Then I'm going to transfer the pork into my larger cast iron Dutch oven that I'm going to be putting all the rest of the ingredients into. So get ready for another time lapse while I brown off the rest of this pork. Okay, so I've got my pork all sauteed off and in my Dutch oven. Now I'm just going to use my saute pan again to do my onions and celery and garlic. So I've put all of the browned ground pork in here, as well as lightly sauteed onions, celery, and garlic. Now what I'm going to do is add my parboiled potatoes. Let's grab these, get those in here. We're gonna need a bigger boat. Thought this would be more than enough space, but clearly it's gonna be tight, folks. So that's going in there. We're also gonna put in some parsley. Again, oh my goodness. Oh, it's overflowing. Oh, this is going to be hilarious. I don't know how I'm going to get all of this in here. Oh no. Okay, that's in there. And my spice mix. So again, this is the salt, pepper, ground cloves, ground savory, and cinnamon. So just put that all in here. Oh man, I don't even know what I'm gonna do. Okay, so before I put in the beef stock, I'm gonna try to mix this together. Then I'll put the beef stock in. I'm gonna cover it. I'm gonna bring it up to a boil and let it go for about a half hour. And then it's time for breadcrumbs, so stay tuned. From the last video, what has changed is that I actually needed to upgrade my pot to this big lobster pot because the filling was too much for my cast iron Dutch oven. So Mom, you have a couple pots back there. Have you split your filling between both?
Yes. But
okay.
Remember, I was going to make 6 large ones, and you were planning to just double your recipe. But as it turns out, it looks like you've got, you're going to have lots of tourtieres to give away.
Yes, we'll see how much pastry I can make this evening and how much that will yield in terms of how much filling can go in each of those pies. So the last thing, so we've got all the ingredients in here. The only thing that I have not done that you've already done is I need to add my beef stock because I had to change over pots. So I'm adding my beef stock, my beef stock to this one. And I'm going to bring this up to a boil and let it simmer for 30 to 45 minutes. And then from there, I will taste and see if my spices are coming through the way that I like them. I only did 1.5 teaspoons of each, even though it was double the recipe. So I will give it a taste and see if I need more. So after this is done, we need to cool it overnight. I'm going to make some pastry later. You already have your pastry ready to go. And then we will touch base on how we're doing in terms of filling all of these tourtieres. Thank you so much for sharing this wonderful recipe with me and anybody who is out there who wants to learn how to make a French-Canadian tourtiere. And I love you so much, Mom. I wish we were doing this all together in your kitchen, but hopefully next year.
We do. Yep. Next year.
Hello again. It's obviously been a few days since we did the filling for the tourtiere. I've actually already assembled some and I'll get into that in a moment. So the last scene that you saw was that I needed to transfer all of the filling into a larger pot because I did run out of space. So I put all my filling in that larger lobster pot. I added the beef stock. I brought it up to a simmer for about 40 minutes. And then when it came time to add the breadcrumbs, what I did was I actually just sprinkled about 1/4 cup over top and mix that in, and that actually seemed to be enough. I didn't really want it to be too gummy or too dry, so I'm going to be editing the recipe online so that you guys know that I only used a 1/4 cup, not the full 2 cups of breadcrumbs. So after the filling was done, I put it in the fridge, I let it cool down completely, and then the night after I made my pastry. Now the reason I didn't do a video for my pastry was I wasn't really sure how it was going to work out, because I haven't made pastry from scratch since baking school. So I put it together, and then Scott and I decided to do a tester pie to see if the filling was going to be delicious. We had already tasted it, of course, before I put it in to cool. And we decided to try some of the pastry I made, which ended up being quite delicious. So the following day, I decided to assemble the rest of the pies, and this isn't even all of the pie that the recipe I made actually ended up making. So the recipe ended up making about 7 of these smaller pies, so including the one that Scott and I already ate, and then another 2 that I've already given away. So I have 4 left. 2 of these beauties are going to some friends today, and then we have another 2 small ones that I'm going to leave in the freezer for easy dinners, you know, in the winter. And then I also had even more filling and pastry left over, so I decided to just make kind of leftover pie with everything that I had left. So it's not as high as the other ones. I just tried to put everything into this so that we have another you know, couple dinners out of this one for sure. So I'm really happy about the way that the recipe turned out. I hope that you guys enjoyed watching me and my mom cook together. I'm really hopeful that next year we'll be able to do some cooking together in one kitchen. So with that being said, everybody please be safe, have a wonderful, wonderful, happy holiday, and a fantastic new year, and I hope that I can be hugging all of you in person again real soon. Merry Christmas.